start with this hashtag Cut 50. What is that? And what are you trying to tell President-elect Biden?
Yeah, so Cut 50 is a bipartisan criminal justice initiative of the Dream Corps. And we are co-founded by CNN political commentator and now Reform Alliance CEO, Van Jones, as well as Jessica Jackson, who is the legal mentor to Kim Kardashian. And essentially, we have a very robust agenda to reduce the national prison population. We want to be able to close prisons, and we want to be able to open doors of opportunities for people who have been disenfranchised and impacted by our criminal legal system.
Yeah, that is a huge issue all over the country. Talk about the opportunity now that we have a different person who's going to be in the White House to handle it differently than we have the last 4 years.
Well, one of the things I do want to say is that as someone who has served nearly 14 years in federal prison, I can attest that people's freedom should not be contingent as to who is in the White House. People who are in the prison house don't care who's in the White House so long as they can get back home to their mama's house. And so during the last 4 years, approximately 2 years ago, we had the benefit of working with this current administration, the outgoing administration, on a bipartisan piece of legislation called the First Step Act. Yeah. That one bill in and of itself has released more than 15,000 people from federal custody in a little bit more than 2 years. And when you quantify those numbers, essentially what that means is that we have more than 500,000 years of human freedom restored back into our communities. Wow. Now, that is just a tip of the iceberg of what we can do on a bipartisan basis and what we should be doing with this incoming administration. We can no longer be passive. We can no longer play politics. We can no longer kick the can down the road, so to speak, as it relates to people's freedom. And in my mind, there's nothing more urgency, especially with the state of our union right now. There's nothing more urgent than health and freedom. And when you think about the people who have been impacted by COVID, 7 out of the 10 hotspots in the United States of America are either in prisons and or jails. And so this incoming administration has, I think that they are in prime position to give people a springboard to success rather than perpetuating a trapdoor to failure.
You mentioned it briefly just now, but you spent a significant amount of time behind bars. Talk to our viewers about that experience and what it taught you.
Yeah, so, one of the things that I often tell people, when they hear about the work that I've been doing as it relates to advocacy, doing national organizing, leading advocacy on historic bills such as the First Step Act, et cetera, people have a tendency to exceptionalize me. But my counter to that is that if given the opportunity, there are more than 2 million people in the United States of America who are currently incarcerated. There are more than 70 million people in our communities with criminal convictions. There are another subset of approximately 6 to 7 million people who are on some form of supervision. If given the opportunity, if we created a space for these individuals to be able to have that springboard to success rather than the trapdoors, the failures that they have been navigating through life, they would rise to the occasion. And so when I was incarcerated, there was a transformation that I have. First and foremost, unapologetically, I am a Christian. I'm a person of faith. And I believe that it was my faith that kept me buoyant through that incarceration experience. The second thing is that an education, a passport opened up in my mind where I was able to matriculate through university and earn my education while I was incarcerated, i.e. the argument in the persuasion to bring back Pell Grants for people who are incarcerated, especially those individuals on the federal level. And the third thing, I realized that those closest to the problem are also closest to the solution, but often furthest from resources and power. That was a notion that I developed from a mentor, Glenn E. Martin. And I wanted to be able to individually stand in that gap and try to bridge that disconnect as much as I could. And so the work that we're doing here at Cut 50 has allowed me to span my network through the Empathy Network. And the Empathy Network is the nation's largest bipartisan coalition of impacted organizers and advocates, literally people who are on the ground, who have their hands in the dirt within their community and their fingers on the pulse of what is happening within their community regarding criminal justice reform. So through the Empathy Network, we have been able to bridge that chasm between those individuals who know about the solutions and the people who are in power but maybe disconnected from the issues. We have been able to bridge that chasm, and all of that came as a result of a transformation that I had when I was incarcerated, and also, I should say, facilitated by the leadership of Van Jones and his vision for the Empathy Network as well.
Yeah. So let's talk about this first 100 days of the Biden administration and what your group sees as the opportunity to act swiftly, to start doing things differently.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, obviously the priority for this administration is going to be on COVID, which we have no compunction about. But what we are going to be challenging this administration is not to forget the so-called least of these among us, those individuals who are still incarcerated. Again, 7 out of the 10 hotspots in the United States of America are in jails and prisons. And so we want to make sure that the people who are incarcerated don't inadvertently be sentenced to death as a result of by virtue of their incarceration. And so we have been working with the Reform Alliance on what we call the SAFER Plan. The SAFER Plan is a 5-point recommendation that we have been submitting to governors since last year, to administration since last year. And very briefly, I'll talk about what that 5-point SAFER Plan means. Number one, we need to make sure that every institution in every correctional facility on all 4 points of our country have PPEs. That means staff and so-called inmates as well. Number two, we need to suspend copays for people who are currently incarcerated. There's no reason why, if an individual is exhibiting signs of COVID-19, that person should have to pay for a medical copay as a result of maybe inadvertent infection. Number three, we need to make sure that people who are within 6 to 14 months of release, that they go. There's no reason why we should be keeping those individuals incarcerated and in custody when they will inevitably be released. And another thing, we need to make sure that people who are in that vulnerable population, 65 and older, that there are special parole considerations for those individuals, and let's get those people out of custody.